All right. So, thank you all for joining. Today is Thursday. We are live with the Hair Hotline. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about wool versus hair. Which one will win? So, I don't know what the fashion trends are, but I used to see a lot of people wearing pea coats, and pea coats are made out of wool. And so I still see a lot of people wearing wool hats, wool scarves, and things like that. So as we are rounding out these winter days and these winter months, especially where I am in Chicago, it has been extremely cold. And if I see one more person with a wool hat on or a wool coat, I am going to scream. So we're going to talk about what's going to win. Is your hair going to win, or is the wool going to win? And based off of my prior conversation, you can understand which one is going to win, okay? All right, so wool is made out of animal fibers. So it is going to be really coarse, and it's going to be similar to cotton, where it can dry the hair out. So instantly, look, I'm trying to stop this glare here. So instantly, when you put your hair up against the wool fibers, your hair automatically, the wool automatically pulls the moisture from your hair. And what happens is, especially when your hair is curly, your hair gets entangled in those fibers. And when your hair gets entangled in those fibers, it's hard for you to get your hair untangled. So what happens is that wool does this on your hair, holds it real tight, and then when you try to release it, or you pull your coat off, or you pull your hat off, you may hear a pop, like a something like that. That's your hair snapping. So it is especially difficult for people with curly hair, because our hair automatically starts to get entwined and tangled into things. But even if you have straight hair, you want to make sure that when you are wearing wool, that you have a barrier between your hair and the wool. So if you have a wool hat on, you want to make sure that you put a silk or satin piece of fabric inside of that hat, or inside of that or on the lining of your scarf, or whatever that your hair is touching with the wool. You want to have some sort of barrier between that, so your hair doesn't get caught in there, and that wool is not grasping onto your hair, because it's not going to let go. And when it does let go, it's going to snap. So we want to make sure that we avoid that, okay? See, I got my notes here today too. So you I already said that immediately, I don't know why I couldn't get that out, dries your hair. So because we are dealing with a fluctuation in temperatures. For example, in Chicago, last week our temperature was completely bipolar. Our temperature went from being negative 20 something degrees, to the wind chill feeling like it was negative 50 degrees, to later on in the week our temperature was about 40 to 50 degrees. So when you have those changes in weather and in the temperature, what happens is your hair gets kind of confused. So your hair has a built-in mechanism of whether it should moisturize itself a little more, or whether it's going to kind of dry itself out a little bit, depending on the temperatures. And so when the winter time comes, a lot of times why we see a lot more conditioning treatments and a lot more commercials for things to add moisture to our hair, is because our hair automatically dries out a little bit more in the winter. So you want to make sure that you are deep conditioning in the winter, but wearing wool in the winter time makes it even worse. So while those fibers latch onto your hair, and like I said earlier, they immediately dry the hair out, your hair is already dry. So adding that extra layer of wool on there is going to kind of make matters a little worse. So like I said, you want to make sure that you have something to provide a barrier between your hair and the wool. The cheapest thing to do: go to the fabric store, get you a yard, or a yard of silk, or a yard of satin. Silk is always the best fiber, or the best not fiber, but the best for your hair. Satin is okay. Sometimes satin can cause a little bit of dryness too, depending on the quality of satin. But silk is going to be the best. So what you want to make sure you do is always have that barrier. So you can sew the barrier between your scarf and your hat inside of there, or just place the barrier in between that to make sure that you are giving your hair the highest chance possible of not breaking while you're wearing that wool. Okay, so to recap, that's all we have. It's real quick today about wool. You want to make sure that you are not wearing wool in the winter. But if you are wearing wool in terms of hat, pea coat, or scarf, always have a barrier between your hair and that fiber, because that wool will win. That wool will latch onto your hair and it will not let go until you pull them apart. And when you pull them apart, it's going to break your hair immediately. I have seen so many people that need haircuts from the winter to the spring months because they've worn these pea coats all season and they can't figure out why their ends look like something like this, or why their ends look like a puppy dog chewed on them. It's because you wear those wool fibers. Those wool fibers will always win. They will always pull your hair and they will not let go. Okay? Thank you all so much for joining. I was super quick this week. Last week we went to about 15 minutes. Don't forget, we are live every Thursday on Instagram at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're live with the Hair Hotline. If you guys have any questions, I'll stay on for another couple minutes for your questions. If you don't have any questions, thank you all so much for joining. And I'll see you all next Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for Live with the Hair Hotline. Hair wins. Hair wins if you're not wearing the wool, or if you have a barrier. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you all so much for joining. We just talked about wool versus your hair, which one will win. Please go back and view this video. Please. And if you do not have time to go back and view this video, please watch our YouTube. All of our lives are up on our YouTube at the Hair Hotline. You'll be able to see all of those. Thank you all so much. We are live every Thursday. See you all next week. Bye-bye.